Hi, everybody, and welcome to this panel about WorldPride, brought to you by InterPride for Copenhagen 2021. With us, incredible people, former, current, and future organizers of WorldPride. David from New York, co-chair of WorldPride 2019. Lars Henriksen, co-chair of Copenhagen 2021, and Kate Wickett, CEO of Sydney WorldPride 2023. Welcome all of you, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks. Good to see y'all.
Lars, what is it to organize a WorldPride?
It is like doing a crossword puzzle and a Rubik's Cube and standing on one leg at one time. It's so many things, moving parts that you need to connect. It is a lot of people having many expectations of what you're going to produce and how it should be and how it includes them, and trying to meet those expectations. Also, many of them not really vocalized. It is political pressure. It is pressure to get the finances in place. It's communication around the globe. It is sleepless nights. And fortunately, it's also many, many wonderful meetings and encounters with people, both from your own organization, your own city, but also from everywhere on the globe, for whom WorldPride is a very, very important event. And for whom participating in a WorldPride potentially has life-changing potential. So I think for me, it's very much about a feeling of responsibility, responsibility to my own community, of course, to my own pride, to my InterPride family, but on a larger scale, I feel a very individual responsibility to each and every person who has invested something in a WorldPride.
David, you co-chaired WorldPride 2019. Back then, it was to honor the 50 years of the Stonewall riots that happened in New York. Did what Lars shared resonate with you?
It does, and actually, before I jump into that, I have to take a moment to shout out to Lars and the team, because as everything with the pandemic started to hit last year, to know the amount of weight on your shoulders already, and to think about the time and the energy, the blood, the sweat, the tears. By God, you traveled to Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm from Indiana, and I don't even like going to Indiana. You know, to have all of this just smack you upside the head and then to have to fight through it, I have so much love and admiration for everything you guys are doing, because I'm sure there's days where you probably want to just walk in, throw the book at the wall and be like, that's it. We can't do this. This is crazy, but you've fought through it and you've pushed through it. You've made it, you know, you're making it happen. So my kudos to you, a deep respect to you and the team, because I think what you're doing truly has never been done before.
Thank you so much.
How do you directly answer your question on the 2019 side of things, and just having crossed the 2-year mark from that, and still, I think, having very vivid dreams and reflections of how that all went and what we enjoyed and what we could do better. The lesson learned on that, that I would pass on to future generations. The one thing for us is, of course, this was the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion. And that's why we bid back in Vegas. We actually had heard a rumor, here's some deep secrets. We had heard a rumor at the time that someone else may bid for 2019 WorldPride. So we're like, well, we've got to go out and do this. This was actually a conversation at a table between like Gilbert Baker and David Schneider, rest his soul, as to should we bid this or not? Should we put the money out there to do this? And ultimately the group voted to say, yes, we should. So we went out and we did the bid. What was funny though, as the years went on, a few things played into the dynamics. The political environment changed very dramatically here in the States, as we're all well aware by those who shall not be named, which added a very new level of kind of internal stress just within the organization from a year-to-year standpoint and what people expected from Pride in that time. But you also had this push and pull from a national to a worldwide stage of is this Stonewall 50 or is this WorldPride 2019? And I bring that up as to say people who may be looking to put together a combined package of this is a monumental event for our city, our location, our region, but also it's WorldPride. In our case, New York City, WorldPride overshadowed Stonewall 50 in a way. It stopped being Stonewall 50. And I don't mean to display that, but I think it's interesting. If you talk to the average person who came here, you know, they were here for WorldPride. They weren't here because it was the 50th anniversary. And I think that that's an interesting takeaway from that, and something that I'd bestow on folks who are looking to combine events going forward.
And this is precisely something that Copenhagen 2021 is currently doing, correct, Lars? It is the umbrella, it's the umbrella label to cover both WorldPride and the Gay Games.
Eurogames, yes.
The Eurogames, excuse me.
Well, yeah, and it is also an umbrella term that should sort of lift this event from a regular Copenhagen Pride in a regular year to the World Pride level. But back to David's point is also that in the bidding credentials that you need to have in order to bid for a World Pride, it says that there must be some reason to bid for any particular city, and of course that means that cities will bid in years where we celebrate some sort of momentous occasion, an anniversary, whatever it could be. And of course that then to an extent is either taking precedence over World Pride or is outshadowed by World Pride. But balancing the two off against each other, it's a difficult thing.
Yeah.
Kate, we remember that during the bid for WorldPride 2023 that went to Sydney, congratulations, you did position Sydney organizing the WorldPride as like a regional hub. So we weren't only talking about one city, but it felt like it was an entire region inviting the world to come and to participate in this 2023 event. What do you want to achieve in a year and a half from now?
Yeah, thanks, Hardy, and great to be with you, David, and Lars as well. And I echo David's comments with respect to Lars and the team and the incredible work that you've been doing in the lead up to 2021 in Copenhagen. It just has been an extraordinary year, extraordinary couple of years, and I can't imagine the various project plans and planning that you've had to undergo. So congratulations, and I can't wait to be there with you in a couple of weeks. Look, when we bid to host WorldPride in Sydney, we very much bid it as a country, but also as a region, as you know. Our first view was that if InterPride wanted to be a global organisation, and as it is, and WorldPride was going to really truly embody and encapsulate all of the world, then it needed to occur in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's never done that before. And it certainly hasn't been over in Asia Pacific or our region. So we very much took a regional approach in that one thing you may know about Australians is when there's a competition or sport, as there is in Tokyo at the moment, the whole country kind of rallies together. And so does, you know, Australia and New Zealand, for example, have a huge rivalry, but we rally together as a region. And I suppose the Asia Pacific, and we have a number of Asia Pacific islands right next to Australia, we really wanted to shine a light on the region as a whole. And that's, as I said, something that we took over to Athens with us, and something that we talked about through the whole big campaign is really shining a light on a region that InterPride hadn't really looked at the full potential. And I know that InterPride are absolutely doing some great work here now in Australia through a number of people. And so really shining a light on the differences within our cultures and shining a light on our First Nations people.
One of the questions that people keep on pondering and the media keeps on writing about is about pride and its relevance. So in our case, not only are we talking about pride in general, but we're also talking about this word pride. So is it still relevant? What is this thing about WorldPride that attracts people? David, you said that it appeared in 2019 to be this monumental event that was attracting people. And we remember that in 2019, about 5 million people walked in the march. So what is it based on your experience?
Yeah, 5 million people in the city on one day. It's still looked at it as a rather unprecedented moment, and really one of the last largest events that happened prior to the pandemic. And even this year, as everyone reemerged out of the lockdowns here, people still found their way to the streets. And there is definitely in the city and at the state level, particularly on the heels of the murder of George Floyd, a lot of discussion as to what the Pride movement means, particularly to the trans and the BIPOC community. And I think that's a very relevant discussion that I think has been overdue. And I think in some ways it was probably bubbling up beneath the surface in a lot of ways that I think was not very present to the mainstream. And I think this is, again, another opportunity for us to bring the issues of those community members forward to the quote unquote mainstream, to make that relevant for those of us that feel like we have a little bit more comfort as someone who is a cisgender white male. What can I do to reach into the community and help them, get the limelight and get the exposure that they deserve for their issues and their concerns? That's why we do this, right? It's awareness. That's the heart and the soul of Pride, is awareness and the quest for equality. So there very much is still reason that we're doing that, at least here in the city.
Lars, there are a lot of tractions already for a Pride organizer. You have to go through a lot. You have to have a lot of uncomfortable and courageous conversations with a lot of people. This is when you're organizing your city Pride, your town Pride, your country Pride, depending where you are. What have been the main challenges, folks, and with other people when it comes to organizing Copenhagen 2021?
Well, I mean, the obvious question is, of course, the pandemic, because doing a global event during a time where people are largely unable to travel, or where, because people's financial or other situations have changed, while they may be allowed to travel, they can't for various reasons do so. That, of course, has been and is a challenge for us, because a WorldPride must and shall be a global event. So we've had to really shift our thinking around, where in the beginning it was all about bringing the world to Copenhagen. Now we are more thinking about how we can bring also Copenhagen to the world. Partnering up, for example, with all Danish and quite a number of Swedish embassies and consulates around the world to live stream our events, to do events on where they are linked to our events, so that Copenhagen 2021 is now an event that does take place all around the world in Danish and Swedish representations. So, of course, I mean, just shifting your head around to doing that instead of being completely focused on events here has been something. I also think that we set a quite high bar for ourselves with our hashtag You're Included, because, of course, when you promise inclusion, that also means something to people. It certainly meant something for us, but it also means something to the people who are given that promise. And I think one of the things that we should just, in general, as Pride organizers, always be aware of is that when people criticize you, it's really coming from a place of, I want to be included, I want to take part, I want to feel welcome to the event. So when people say this, that, or the other did not happen, or I couldn't see anywhere whether I could feel safe here, or if that was possible for me to join, it's not so much criticism as a desire to take part. So if you sort of shift that mindset around to saying, oh, here is actually a person saying, I would love to be part of it, how can you make that possible for me, or help me to feel included, then criticism becomes a lot easier to take, because it also becomes constructive and super positive. And I think as an organizer, sometimes it is difficult because you work a lot, you have so many good intentions, and you come to love your event to an extent where criticism also almost becomes personal. But to take that step back and say, hey, this is not you being criticized personally. This is a person saying, could I please take part? It makes it easier. And just that little exercise mentally is sometimes difficult to do. And I think reminding ourselves all the time as a team about this, instead of immediately trying to defend ourselves, is quite difficult. But we are striving towards that.
Yeah. Kate, you have been the lead for the monumental Sydney Pride. You're currently the CEO of the structure organizing Sydney WorldPride 2023. You certainly have had your share of issues to navigate, and now with all the expectations and the excitement building up to a Sydney WorldPride, we can only imagine that the way dealing with things is equally monumental and impressive. Tell us more about this.
I think it's going to be fantastic to really take Copenhagen's lead. And as I mentioned earlier, the vast variety of different scenario planning that they must have undertaken and that they've undergone over the last 2 years must be incredible. And I think certainly we've been watching and collaborating with Copenhagen and helping where we can to see how they augment or change or adapt both their events in person, but also online. And I really like that point that Lars makes around it's not just about bringing the world to Copenhagen, but taking Copenhagen to the world. And with obviously technology now, we have the opportunity to do that. And I think that benefits not just those who can't travel for border closure reasons, but as Lars outlined, those who might be in geopolitical situations that don't allow them to travel, or socioeconomic reasons that don't allow them to travel. And that's certainly something that we have focused on, particularly with the Asia Pacific, where there are a lot of geopolitical sensitivities, and we are aware that it may not be safe for those to attend in person, but it's absolutely at front of mind that we want them to be able to participate and join with us. So I just reflect back on what David said around whether WorldPride or prides generally are still relevant. And I think that's always front of mind for me, because my answer to that, and this is kind of woven through everything that we do, is that we will absolutely be relevant, particularly to the point that we are equal under the law. And we know that there are a lot of countries around the world where we are not just not equal, but there are in fact egregious crimes against our community. And I think that that's what WorldPride really provides the platform for, is highlighting and debating and understanding that we don't have equality, and particularly whether it be our trans communities or our BIPOC communities, First Nations, or even just by geography of where you live. I think that's the relevance, and that's the primacy of and the power of WorldPride.
Yeah. David, we see you nodding a lot.
No, particularly. I think that's well said, Kate. On the world front, that what you see, and I mean, this is part of the pressure, I think, as an organizer, is that if you even reflect on my answer, it was so ethnocentric. I'm sitting here reflecting on how could I have said that better. Just been literally stuck here in Manhattan for the last year and a half. That you have your internal stakeholders, and in my case, we had membership. We had our community members here in the city. And then you have a large representation of people from across the world coming from such different experiences, such different backgrounds, with all very different expectations of what's going on, whether it's an InterPride member group or a group of people who are traveling as friends because they heard something in their local magazine that said, hey, come to the city, come to this destination. And aligning all those expectations, you know, to use Lars' phrase earlier of standing on one leg with trying to solve a Rubik's. It's a really big jigsaw puzzle. And there's definitely nights that you go to bed and feel like, wow, damn, we still haven't mastered this. Like, we still haven't cracked the code. We still, in everything we're trying to do, there's still this group of folks who are unhappy, or have still upset this group of people by making this decision. And it's very much kind of a constant mental tug of war too. I know Marianne said something at the closing ceremony around, you know, this will not just test you personally, but it will test your organization. And I think that's, I see Kate and Lars both nodding. I think that's something that to future organizers, you've got to be prepared to take that on, because the mental take on wanting to fulfill all of those areas can really consume you quite quickly.
Many people, yeah, go on.
Can I just add to that? I think the whole the whole idea around pride being not relevant anymore is such a privileged position, because that must come from people who live in countries like Denmark or Sweden, or countries like the ones that we're in, where we've come far, but we're by far not where we need to be, but where parts of our community and parts of society at large doesn't understand the issues that we have. And so for that reason alone, Pride is relevant. Pride is also relevant because we've seen backlash in later years in countries like the ones I'm speaking of here, where trans rights were suddenly experiencing pushback in the US. We've got countries within the European Union now putting laws in place against the LGBTI+ community. So even if we have managed to achieve a certain level of inclusion in our societies, that doesn't mean that that's a natural or something that will then last forever, because political attitudes might change and then we experience backlash. So we need to keep the pressure on. And adding to that, we who are in this privileged position also need to be mindful of being that stage where either we can speak for those who cannot themselves, or where we can invite those to speak who don't have a platform at home. So in many ways, if we lean back and say, yeah, we have it made, then we're losing out. And to just quote Martin Luther King now, injustice against one is injustice to everyone. So we are a community, we're a global family, and we need to stand together, and we need to be mindful of that, so that we don't lose out, because we will all lose on it.
You're touching on so many points I want to reflect on. You know, so many people are watching us now. You know, there are participants in the Human Rights Conference of Copenhagen 2021, and then selecting this panel and wanting to hear this conversation between WorldPride organizers. You know, we keep on talking about the challenges that WorldPride organizers, and in particular Pride organizers, face, and how to navigate groups of people, how to navigate different demands, and so on. We will, after these 45 minutes, have a Q&A with our viewers. So we take live questions from them. This will be during the Copenhagen Human Rights Program. But before we get there, and since we do not have the privilege of having a live conversation now with our viewers, what do you believe, according to your experience and to, you know, the circles and the spaces we navigate in, what do you think are the most pressing issues that Pride organizers must be aware of to create, or at least to structure an event that is in reality inclusive for people?
Well, I can start. I think it's really important to first of all reach out to as many corners of the community as possible and ask their needs, instead of assuming that you can imagine what people need who are not you. And And then once you've done that and included people's input, then also try to put yourself in other people's shoes and say, okay, if I was to participate here, what would I need if I had this or that challenge? So, but that's so basic. I think it's also important that we, and that's not only in the Pride organizing community, it's in the LGBTI+ community as a whole. I think it's really important that we right now create an environment where we accept that we are all learning from each other, and where in that process we're allowed to make mistakes and become wiser from our mistakes, and not be shouted at or shouted out or shamed, or but be allowed to reflect and learn and admit to your mistake and then go on and having learned, because we're not the biggest community in the world, and I actually think we need everybody. So if we start an internal fight and battle between us, then we will lose, and our enemies, our external enemies, will win. So if we are to win anything here, we need to do it together. We can only do it together. And I think that's another very important point for me to make, is that we need to allow for mistakes. And then the third thing is, and that's more maybe an internal thing within the InterPride community, that I think we should be open to future World Prides being different from World Prides we've seen in recent years, Madrid, New York, Copenhagen, Sydney, because it's been very much a focus on, is the organization big enough to handle it? Can we as Pride organizers create a World Pride that's grand enough? But maybe we should also allow for World Prides to be a lot smaller and very different from what we're used to, in order for World Pride to be in a more hostile environment, where the event will look completely different and where we all need to chip in and help, but where it's important that we are, as a Pride movement, as a global community, and where it then might not be with as big a budget as we've seen in recent years, or with as big an event, but maybe a smaller event in certain places is more important than a big event in Copenhagen.
Yeah, I think, Lars, you touch on a number of really important points. For us, we've really been considering, and something that's really important to me, is that we have the ability to balance the seriousness and the discussion around human rights, and the fact that we still need to advocate for and assert for and protect the human rights that some of us in various countries have been able to secure, and ensure that they aren't diminished in any way. But also, as I mentioned earlier, continue to advocate for those who haven't achieved those rights. And so it's a balance really between the seriousness and importance of those human rights, with, I think, something that makes people feel included. And for us, that really is around diversity of programming. So people coming to WorldPride, or people wanting to come to WorldPride, I think really want to see something in the program that they see themselves in. And it's reflective of all parts of the community. So whether that might be a theatre show, or a queer thinking session, or a dance party, or any of the different raft of events that I know Copenhagen are planning, and certainly we are. I think that diversity of programming is key to make sure that it's relevant to everyone who is attending, or who would like to attend. And then I think similarly to Lars, we have a real opportunity to make systemic social impact and social change. And I know that Copenhagen have done a significant amount of work, particularly, you know, the breakout session with refugees in Malmo, for example. An opportunity to leave a positive, sustainable legacy, and social impact change, positive social impact change for our communities, but also the communities that that we live within broader out of the LGBTQI plus community. So I think you hit the nail on the head at the beginning, Lars, when you said that the city and certainly the organisers hosting WorldPride have a significant responsibility, and I know that that's certainly not lost on the three people on the call here. But again, I think the positive, long-lasting social impact and legacy is a real opportunity for us to enable people to be seen, to be heard, and ultimately, and we haven't used this word yet, but ultimately to celebrate together, because that's what our community has been doing for years. In the face of adversity, we come together and we celebrate together. And I think that element and component of fun should never be lost.
Yeah, to echo, I think a little bit of what you're both saying, and in particular, maybe to put a finer point on something Lars was saying, just in terms of our colleagues and those of us that are part of the InterPride community. I mean, that to me was a huge source of stress. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but the weight of knowing that all of your peers are watching everything you do, from every hors d'oeuvre tray to every sign that you put up, it scares the hell out of you. And you know, in the moments, and we all know this from seeing each other, I barely remember. I mean, Lars, I remember the last time I remember seeing you was literally handing the trophy to you in Times Square. And that's it. Like, I don't remember I mean, I know where I ended up the rest of the night, but it's all like that. You spend like no time with everybody. And in the months leading up to that, the InterPride community is there to support you, but there are times that it feels like if you take a single step to the left or right and screw up, you will be, you know, shunned forever. And that's something that I'd say to everybody else in the InterPride community is your love, your support, your kindness, your, hey, don't worry about that, it's fine, look at the grander thing, means the world to the people who are putting on these events. And whether it's every year's Pride and something goes wrong, a thunderstorm crashes the stage, or something as big as WorldPride, like that support and that love really goes a long way. And it's something that I give credit to Madrid to, that we felt a lot of pressure to carry forward, which was this idea that if you're InterPride at WorldPride, you're royalty. And we felt so much pressure to really put on a program and give special access and do such great things. And that's an interesting balance, because now we're dividing, in our case, our staff and some of our membership duties to help support these InterPride exclusive opportunities. At the same time, we're trying to also support diversity in the larger community. And that right there, one could argue, is a statement of privilege. Should we be providing that privilege to InterPride members? And what was it taking away from? You know, that's a question that I think I'll always wonder about. So just at a macro level, and it might be easier for me to say this since I'm 2 years removed right now, but that's something that I'd shout back to my InterPride friends. And I wish I could be seeing all of you face to face in Copenhagen, is send your love, you know, send it to Lars, send it to Kate and the team, be so supportive of them at every step of the way. And you know, it just means a lot.
Yeah, certainly. If it means a lot on a personal level, what if it means a lot on a Pride organizers level? It definitely means a lot when you are organizing this WorldPride. You should know, the three of you, and also the future WorldPride organizers and the past, the former WorldPride organizers, that as InterPride and Pride organizers look up to you. We acknowledge and recognize all what you have to navigate, all what you have to go through. And I'm sure now our viewers are really seeing the goodwill and the good faith of Pride organizers and WorldPride organizers, this eagerness to move forward with everybody. And this obviously entails the participation of everybody for the improvement of our shared and common realities. David, what was your best WorldPride experience in New York?
The best, I mean, hell, I had a great time in Madrid because I wasn't responsible for anything. That was my best WorldPride experience. I just got to hang out with them and watch. You know, I still ponder this question a lot. I'm actually looking up at a collage that's above my desk of a lot of the moments from that 2 weeks and even the years before. A moment I actually will share with everybody that I don't think we've publicly talked about before. We were coming down the march route, and we got to the broadcast area, which in itself, the fact that we were able to broadcast this was an amazing thing. We had just kissed everybody goodbye from the InterPride contingent as they're walking through, and saw them going down the screen. And Marianne and Chris and I went back to, we had like a viewing stand for folks, and they had like little mimosa things they were giving away, and we like grabbed just a quick little glass, a little tiny bit of champagne, and toasted really quick, and we're like, oh my God, it's happening. This is happening. This was the last day of everything. And we all just broke into tears. It was that moment of just everything culminating, and all the stress, the late night calls, the early morning messages, the Slacks, all of that. And just in the moment going, things are running, it's happening. A thunderstorm would hit like 45 minutes later and throw things out of whack at the pier. But in that moment, things felt really perfect. Second to that, I'd say the opening ceremony was so fun to see everybody. And just the fact that we were able to take over an arena as a large group of LGBTQIA+ people in New York City was really a memorable moment. So there's your behind the scenes answer, but also the more public answer.
Lars, I see you moved.
Well, I'm first of all, I was very moved by what David said about the stress we feel about our own community, because we are doing it for the people that we know also, and I don't know how many times I've sat down to organize an event and thought, oh, this or that person I know from InterPride will be so happy to attend this, and I'm going to take it in this direction because that person will enjoy it. So there is also this personal element to it that of course creates stress, but also gives you energy. And for me, it's a very strange little thing that is my biggest takeaway from New York. But it is that the entire team from New York City Pride that we met, regardless of the enormous pressure you must have been under during the entire event, whenever there was the tiniest problem we had, it could be, I mean, at the opening ceremony, there was something we didn't know where the tickets were and blah, blah, blah. And we got the kindest, most helpful answers every time. It was never, hey, I can't deal with this right now because don't you see in a bigger picture, how can your problem be relevant to me right now, blah, blah, blah. And that stress level never took over. It was always kind and helpful and forthcoming, and I hope that we can live up to that ideal, that we will be in a place where that is something people will experience from our team as well when we're in the middle of whatever thunderstorm, mental or real, that we have, that we remain kind and helpful.
I have no doubt you will.
So beautiful to look at your faces, actually, this emotion, you know, this emotion, this heat, you know, running around, getting things done, you know, seeing all your aspirations, all your, you know, your design, your thinking comes to fruition, understanding the impact that this is producing, not only to people that we know, but especially to this huge amount of people that we don't know and that we may never, you know, meet or you know, have a chat with and so on. It's incredible. Literally, it's incredible. It's beautiful. This love we carry, and that we want to tell everybody, just wake up. This is the amazing thing that we can do. Let's just close ranks, and even if we don't see eye to eye on everything, let us just yield this impact because it is massive. And just hearing you talk about this, it's very heartwarming, and it is beautiful, and I really hope that this reverberates among our viewers and those who are listening to us and those who are watching this panel at any time. So on behalf of InterPride, thank you very much for doing this. Thank you for constantly reminding us of the importance of pride, bringing people together, this huge performance of visibility where everybody from gender and sexual diversity does have a seat at the table, not only in Pride, but also through Pride at other available tables, the tables of our cities, the tables of our societies. So thanks for doing this. In a few minutes, we'll be live with our viewers, the participants in this panel to take some questions. And meanwhile, thanks for this epic WorldPride in 2019. We're eager for Copenhagen in 2021 now. And again, a year and a half from now, in February 2023 in Sydney. So cool, exciting times. Thank you very much for watching us. Thank you very much for joining us, Kate, Lars, David.
Thank you so much for having us.